Hey everybody, this is Steven from PopCultureMaven.com. We're back with this week's new comic book reviews. So hopefully you all get a chance to check out the giant catch-up for 3 weeks. It included the holiday, and then the week before I was going to do them separate, and then things just didn't work out. So it's one giant thing. It's not too bad. It moved pretty good considering how many titles we had to get through. This week's a little bit better. It's not super crazy. Not too bad. Some new kids on the block, and then some returning champions or some returning not-so champions. So let's just get right into it. First off, we have Justice League versus the Legion of Superheroes #1, written by Brian Michael Bendis, with artwork by Scott Gowalski. So the big key is going to be the Legion in this. Now, Bendis had tried to revive the Legion with very mixed reception, to say the least. It actually was not well received, especially by Legion fans. I think the problem with that book was that the Legion has hundreds of characters, and he tried to use them all at once. Then on top of that, you have his passion for dialogue that can really just smack you in the face sometimes because there's so much of it. So the question comes down to how is his take this time with the Legion. Now, so what he's doing, it's his current Justice League lineup with Black Adam, Batman, Wonder Woman, Naomi, Aquaman, Green Arrow. I think I got everybody. And the good thing is he's pared down, and I think we only have about maybe a dozen Legion, maybe up to 15, but not too crazy. So the kind of question comes down to, is he able to pull this off? And I would say maybe, because part of it, and I don't want to say this is a problem with the book, it's a first issue. So there's a lot, this first issue is a pure setup. So it's the reason that they meet, what's going on, and so that's kind of where this first issue lies. And I would say that it's an okay first issue. It didn't necessarily blow me away, but I didn't feel that it was overdone like a lot of Bendis books lately have been. So in that case, I think the story-wise, it was pretty decent for a first issue. It was definitely a first issue. The one good thing that it really does have going for it is Gowalski's artwork, which is really, really nice. Does a really good job of capturing the Legion and the Justice League, and it's a really good-looking book. That is the one thing it definitely has going for it. So the question comes down to is, if you're not super familiar with the Legion, I think this is a good, decent jumping on point to at least give you a feel of what the Legion is. Bendis does love the Legion, and it does show even in in his Legion book. I think the problem is he tried too hard. This one seems to be a little bit easier to kind of get into, but like I said, I think really the key is going to be the second and third issue to see how he's really going to be able to handle this. So that's where it is. It's I wouldn't say it's a huge recommendation. I say it's a mild recommendation, in the sense of if it's something you're interested in, you're probably going to be okay. It's too hard to call on this one. Next up, we have Daredevil Woman Without Fear #1, written by Chip Zdarsky with artwork by Raphael de la Torre. So now this book spins out of the previous Daredevil book. And so if you hadn't read that storyline, the whole reason that Elektra is Daredevil, you're going to be kind of lost here. I don't think it's entirely fatal, but I think there's a lot of backstory that goes into it. And Zdarsky does try to infuse those story elements into this story, but ultimately there's a lot of story that happened before this that really leads up to it. So this is one problem I do have with Marvel when they do this. This is not really a #1. This is whatever, like, if Daredevil ended on issue 30, this is actually 31. It's not really a new #1. And so I think for new readers, I don't know that this is really a good jumping in point. You really probably need to go back and read that storyline that leads up to it. With that being said, I think this was an okay first part of a story. I don't even want to say first issue anymore, because it really isn't. It's part one. I think it was decent. It didn't overwhelm me, but I think there were some interesting plot elements that he did bring, especially about Elektra's past and how she kind of was trained and everything. So that's where the story is kind of interesting. The one thing, Latour's artwork, he continues to really do a nice job. It's a really good looking book. I just think that it's not really, I wouldn't really say this is a number one. This is really just a first part of a new storyline. So in that respect, I wouldn't, if you haven't really been reading Daredevil, I wouldn't really rush and buy this straight up by itself. But I would check out the previous storyline, which I did like. So that would be, I think, a better starting point than jumping in here. Next up, we have We Ride Titans #1, written by Trez Dean with artwork by Sebastian Perez. So here now we're at the point where it's another kaiju book and giant robot, and at this point, it's not that this book is bad. It's just a little late to the party. I think I think there's some interesting ideas, but I think ultimately it just felt like someone who really liked Pacific Rim, the first one, the Guillermo del Toro one, and said, hey, I can take this and kind of do a story with it. I don't think it's entirely a ripoff, but it really it kind of felt really okay. I think the story, because what it is this family has been running the giant robot for the city. The brother is out on a battle. He's drunk. He defeats the kaiju but destroys a bunch of the town, so they're kind of all pissed. And so the daughter, who's basically left the family, disowned them, she's like, I don't want to have anything to do with it. So they basically, the mom comes and begs her to come back, and she's like, okay, I'll come back until my brother gets his crap together. And so that's a basic story. And I think that's kind of it's okay. It wasn't good. Or I mean, it wasn't bad. It wasn't great. It was okay. The art by Perez is actually pretty nice. Does a nice job. I think it's a decent looking book. I just think at this point, it's so late to the party, and it really didn't bring much new that I can't really highly recommend it. It was okay. Next up, we have Rain #1. With a story by Joe Hill, with the adaptation by David M. Boer, with artwork by Zoe Thorogood. So this is an adaptation of the Joe Hill novel, Rain, same name, that is a visual adaptation of that. And I think it's once again, it's a first issue. It's all set up, but I think it's an interesting story. I think the question comes down to the basic premise of the story is, instead of aliens invading, and it's actually a rain of basically needles, and they kill most everybody on the planet because it's people are outside, it's a hot day, they're dead. So that's really what happens in the first issue. First issue is pure setup. So it's, I think the question is, this is kind of a post-apocalyptic type story, people are dead, blah, blah, world's coming to an end. And once again, I have not read the novel, so I'm fresh into this, so I'm just going by this first issue. I think there's some definite, I think it shows promise. But like I said, it's a first issue, so I can't really give it a firm yes or no at this point. I give it a decent, yeah, you should check it out for something interesting. I will say Thorogood's artwork is actually really, it fits a story, and it's really, and I don't mean this in a bad way, it's a really unique style, but I think it really kind of fits the story, and it has a very, very much kind of indie vibe to it. It's definitely not mainstream kind of superhero-ish type artwork, but I think it really fits a story, and I think the thing that really added really to this first issue is there's just a lot of dialogue and stuff, and it's kind of talking heads, and she really just brings a nice visual look to that, and I think especially like in the first issue, having the art really help the story move along when it's just a lot of exposition really is a big plus. So I think it's worth checking out. I like I said, it's a first issue, so it's not a high recommendation, but I think it's worth checking out if you're looking for something different, and especially if you're a fan of like Joe Hill's story. Next up, we have Batman Urban Legends number 11. So there's 4 stories in here. The first one is Batwoman Zatanna by Vita Ilea, with artwork by Nicola. Oh wow, this is going to be tough, folks. Sheminzja. I'm sorry. Hopefully, I'm sure I totally screwed that up, but I apologize. The second story is a White Rich story written by Ram V with artwork by Anand Radhakrishnan. Then we have a what would be a Kid Eternity. It's just called Eternity, but it's really, if you're familiar with Kid Eternity, it's written by Mahal Mishayo, with artwork by artist Den. And then the final story is a Ace the Bat Hound story written by Mark Russell and with artwork by Carl Mosteret. So I'll go, for me, it was all about the Mark Russell, but I do want to go through the other stories. The Batman Zatanna was actually really kind of an intriguing story, because I really don't want to give away, but there's a great scene with Superman and Batman that's just freaking hilarious. And Ilea just nails that part really well. It's kind of interesting. It really has to do with this thing that Batman and Zatanna have done, and they're trying to fix it. It's kind of like a magical mistake, and they're trying to fix it. And every year that they do this once a year, and so that's what the basic premise of this story is. It was really kind of funny, because I like the fact that it was kind of, it wasn't just a superhero story. I think there was actually a lot of humor in it, especially with Batman, and that's hard to do. If you could do it well, Ilea does it really quite well here. And the artwork was actually pretty decent. There was a little basic at times, but ultimately it looked good. The Right Rich by Ram V and Radishkin Nan. It was interesting. The artwork actually was really nice. I liked the story, but it was a lot of setup in the story. So, but I liked the premise. I think it shows promise. The Eternity, the Kid Eternity story was actually interesting, because it's taking kind of a mystical character and putting him in Gotham. So it's kind of a murder mystery type story, and it was actually interesting. The artwork's actually really nice. But for me, I know you've all been waiting. Yes, the big win for this book, and it is really spectacular, is the Ace Bat Hound story by Russell and Mosteret. That is absolutely wonderful. It really is damn good. Honestly, because this book is like $8. So the good thing is that the 3 other stories are good stories. I think but this one is by far the one. It was even worth $8. Even if the other stories were not good, which I don't want it, they are good. This one is so good. Honestly, it's a shame, because I think it would have actually been a great like mini series, but they put it in this book. But I will say, there's 6 parts of this. The next 6 issues of this book you're gonna have to buy, because if this first storyline's any indication, it is spectacular. Russell gives Bat Hound an origin. He may have had an origin, but this is like a new origin, or no origin, whatever. So he gives him how Batman found Ace, and how he made him like a partner. And it's just really good, because it's a partner story, yet it's Ace the Bat Hound in Batman, and it's really, really good, and it has a great cliffhanger ending. It was really spectacular. And then on top of that, you have a great story, but Mosteret's artwork is just absolutely gorgeous. It is really a good looking book. I will be very honest. It's very obvious he is very influenced by Frank Quietly, and that is not a knock against him. I mean, his artwork is very Mosteret's artwork is very detailed. It's really a great looking book. It actually, I like the fact that it was the last one, because it really, it helps when you have, to me, like the strongest story in the book. Once again, nothing against the other three, and you have it last. I think that makes a huge difference, because then it doesn't overshadow the other stories, and that was a wise move. I hopefully, if it was the editor that made that decision, I think that was a wise decision. But anyways, really, I really recommend this book for that story alone. But the other ones are good. But it was really a real home run. It was absolutely wonderful. Next up, we have King of Spies #2, written by Mark Miller, with artwork by Matteo Scalera. So this is the first issue was actually kind of surprising. I mean, Millar is, I think, the way he's pronouncing it now. But it's basically as if James Bond was older. He's got 6 months. He's dying of cancer. He's got 6 months. And what he's doing is he's basically going after the people that deserve to die. People who have ripped, who started pyramid schemes, presidents who've screwed everybody, things like that. And so that was the setup for the first issue. So this issue, he's picking off bad people left and right, people who truly that are just bad people. He's picking them off left and right. So then they hire other people to, like, okay, they think that they're pretty sure that he's doing all this. So let's get our spies, the ones that are still working for us, after him. And so there's a bit of a nice twist that Miller does with the story, where there's one spy that I won't give away, but it will make for an interesting story. I have to admit, this has been a bit of a surprising book, considering a lot of Miller's books lately have been not that great. Of course, the other thing that really makes this, Scalera's artwork is just gorgeous. This is a really damn good looking book. So it actually has a good story and really good art, and it's definitely worth checking out. Next up, we have Batgirls #2, written by Becky Cloonan and Michael W. Conrad, with artwork by George Corona. I really liked the first issue, and it really had a good setup. The second issue builds on the story really nicely. Has some nice twists and turns with the story. I like the relationship with Barbara and the girls. I like the fact that the girls, Cloonan and Conrad do a nice job of actually kind of capturing that young spirit, but they're not annoying. They're kind of annoying semi-teenagers, but like not in a bad way. They're kind of normal annoying. And then really the big win for this book has been Corona's artwork, which really just has a kinetic look and feel to it that just really makes this book stand out, and really adds greatly to the solid story that Cloonan and Conrad are writing. It's really a fun book, and I think that has been sorely missing from some of the Batman books. I will say Nightwing is another example of a book that is just really solid and fun, but still has, like, it can be gritty and stuff. It isn't dark and gritty all the time, and it's more. It just has more fun to it, and like I said, you have a solid story and just amazing artwork that just really. This is you need to check out this book. It's really, really good. Next up, we have Ramen and Batman #3, written by Jeff Lemire, with artwork by Dustin Nguyen. So this is the final story. So the villain of this has basically been Killer Croc, and we find out that he is actually hunting Dick Grayson, because when the Flying Graysons were in the circus, there was the Fish Boy, and the Fish Boy was Killer Croc. So I really have to give it to Lemire that was really kind of a stroke of genius in the storytelling that really adds a lot to this story. this has been a great story because it's really a wonderful coming of age of Dick Grayson. And it also is really, I think the other thing that Lemire has done really well here is given an interesting, how do I put it? Like the relationship between Bruce and Dick has really been really fleshed out wonderfully here. It's kind of like a story that's never been told but is always kind of been there. And I always love when a writer is able to kind of fill in those stories that are kind of off to the side but were never told. And that's what Lemire does here. And then Wynn's artwork is just gorgeous. His watercolor artwork just really makes this book, has made this book just wonderful. This has been really spectacular because it really like I said, it's just wonderful storytelling, great artwork. It's been a must buy. If you missed any issues, I know there's going to be a trade or hopefully maybe even a hardcover of this. Definitely check this out. This was really good. Next up, we have The Thing #3, written by Walter Mosley with artwork by Tom Riley. So once again, Walter Mosley is a novel writer. So this is his first comic book, and in some ways, you can kind of tell because even though there's storylines from like the previous issue, each issue is kind of weirdly stands on its own. It's like he kind of knows how to write a comic, and this is not a knock. It's just that it's like he's kind of following a weird pattern, but the one thing he has really captured the spirit of Ben Grimm and like his charm and just everything. And it's really been a surprisingly fun book because I think The Thing is a really great character and there have been good stories with him. But Mosley has really captured a lot of the fun, and yet there's a lot of action in it and everything. But I think what really has made it is how he went on this blind date with this girl, and now they're just like hanging out, and because even though she's almost been killed like 5 times. And then there's the kid who's just like a big fan of the thing. Now he's like hanging out with Ben and the girl, and it's just there's just something like wild about this book. I mean, it really kind of gets crazy, but it all works because it's just I think Mosley has captured the charm of Ben Grimm himself. And that's always the key. It's not the superhero, it's actually the character within the superhero, and he's really captured that. And then Riley's artwork is so much fun on this book. He really just brings a really fun sense of this kind of urban feel that just really makes this book just pop, and this is so much fun. You really should be checking it out. Next up, we have Harley Quinn, the animated series, the Eat, Bang, Kill Tour #5, written by T. Franklin with artworks by Max Sarin. So this is kind of an intern between the animated series season 2 and the one that's coming season 3. So it takes place post her Ivy not getting married, and her and Harley discovering that they really love each other. So that's kind of where this is, and it's, I have to admit, this book is really fun, and in a lot of ways Franklin's really captured a lot of what I think made the first season of Harley Quinn, the animated series, so good, and it kind of lost that a little bit in the second season, but she's really brought that back. And then Sarin, just his artwork is wonderful. It has this great cartoony style that just really makes this book pop. It's a lot of fun. It's kind of a no-brainer. It's like the Batman Scooby-Doo. This is not all ages. This is definitely mature, but it has that same feel where it really captures the essence of the animated series, but does its own thing within that story elements that is all set up there. So I really enjoyed this book. It's a great looking book, and it's a digital. It started as digital first. They're now printing it, and I'm sure you can either read it digitally. I'm sure there's going to be a trade of this when it comes out. So I'm having a blast with it. It's a lot of fun, and they're really, both with the story and visuals, really capturing the fun of that show. And finally, we have What's the Furthest Place from Here, #3, written by Tyler Boss with artwork by Matthew Rosenberg. So this has been a really interesting book because we've had so many post-apocalyptic books. It's insane now. I mean, every week it's like, oh, how many post-apocalyptic books? Well, let's see, one, two. So I will say that the Boss has really. I think what is interesting here is he's kind of taken. It's almost like he's taken post-apocalyptic and inserted the Warriors, the Walter Hill film, in some respects into this, in the sense of that there are now gangs that have certain areas, like certain cities, or they have like a neighborhood or even just a house. So we've kind of, so the main team has lost their house. They're looking for one of their members. And so they're kind of on this journey and they're out in like no man's land where they don't have any backup or anything. So the last issue, they ended up at this like house and they thought it was abandoned. So, but no, there's somebody abandoned. But I think what's interesting is that, so we know about the fractions, all that kind of stuff. But what Boss has done here is there's obviously some outside force that maybe this is why there's this post-apocalyptic world. We don't know. But it would almost be like there's this alien or something like that, maybe running the show, or they're we don't know. They're introduced in this issue, but we don't quite know what their reasoning is. And it really gave this, and then also there's something that happens in this house. And I don't want to give it away, but really this issue really turns this book on its side in the sense of the first two issues kind of set up, okay, they're looking for their friends, and then there's gangs, blah blah blah, and that was great. It was really great. But this issue like kind of throws a monkey wrench into like, hey, there's a lot more going on than just that. And that's what I really is really impressing me about this book, is the Boss is like, okay, I could just write this, but no, we're going to do this. And I really like that. And then Rosenberg's art he really does a nice job here, because a lot of it is just like talking heads and dialogue and stuff like that. And he's able to like really make it just work really well visually. And it, like I said, this issue just really just turned things on its head and just goes like, wow, hey, we're doing this, but now something else is like going on beyond what the basic structure is. And like I said, they've done a really good job. I'm really liking this book. It'll be really interesting to see with this fourth issue, now that we have this like kind of change in the story. So definitely check it out. It's well worth checking out. That's going to do it. It's not a bad week. Some good things. I don't think there was any clunkers in the bunch. So that's good. That's always a plus. I hate reviewing comics that are just clunkers. It's not good. People work their butts off to get comics made. So anyways, that's it. Public service announcement as always. I buy all my comics at Pulp Fiction Comics in Long Beach, California. Ryan runs a great store. Annie and Eduardo are great. They have a great store. They have a great pull service. They offer their trades and graphic novels at 30% off. They have just a really good comic store. They also have a Facebook group, which is well worth checking out. You should always, there's a lot of stuff that goes on there. A lot of the customers, we all post stuff on there. It's a lot of fun over there. If you more in the LA area, there is a sister store that's run by Chris and her team. Same name, separate store. Pulp Fiction Culver City. They're right off the 405. So that's definitely it's a good store. Once again, they offer great pull service discounts. Check them out. They're both really good stores if you live in the LA area. And as always, please get vaccinated. Things are getting really crazy out there. Once again, get vaccinated, get boosted, wear your mask, social distance. I know it's just getting crazy out there, but we need to really get through this and just please take care of yourselves and stay healthy and just stay safe. And as always, we end our show with the most important thing right now is to be kind. Being kind doesn't cost anything, just even a little thing like, hey, just like somebody's got a bunch of stuff and you're buying a couple things at the checkout. Hey, let them go. Just be kind. It doesn't cost anything. Just be nice to people. Say hello. Say, wish people a good day. It makes a big difference. So just once again, please be kind. And that's going to do it this week. Once again, be kind. Take care of yourselves. We'll do it again. This is Stephen from popculturemaven.com. And we'll be back next week with more comic book reviews. And hopefully we'll keep this on track. All right. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.